Hello and welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
Hi guys, happy Friday. I'm excited tonight. We have a great show. A couple things. First, I need to apologize. I said I would be covering Goddess Olympia, and that's a real goddess, but not ours. And so I totally got that wrong. It's Goddess Columbia. And as soon as I got done, I was like, that's not the right one. But we were live, and I did need to do that correction immediately because any who showed up because they were interested in hearing about Goddess Olympia, I'm not going to be talking about her. I'm going to be talking about the American goddess Columbia. And that also, in remembrance of 9/11, we did have plans the last time we were live because it was the eve before to acknowledge that the next day was 9/11. And it's nothing I can do to make that better for not. As soon as we were done, I remembered, and I did feel awful. And the next day, all day, I kept thinking about, how did I not say something? So also, it's still September, and it's still, 20 years is a long time, but I remember everything changed afterwards, and nothing will ever be the same since that happened. And so do acknowledge and remember, of course.
Yeah. Likewise. While we're on it, do you remember what you were doing when you were in the news?
I do actually remember what I was doing. I was breastfeeding my youngest and feeding my oldest breakfast. And the news just cut away. I had just music playing on TV. You had to have cable. This is 19, a long time ago. Not 19, since 2000 something, but still listening to music in the morning while we did our morning thing, and it broke away. And just standing in front of the TV, of course, tears falling down my face. My youngest not understanding what was happening and trying to tell a little person who's not in double digits yet. And I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, I will never forget that morning, and waking up every morning to see what else could happen, and how do we even prevent it, and just being a little terrified. I think we got a taste of what a lot of countries feel, even right now. Yeah, it's not a good feeling. What were you doing?
I was.
Say you were a sperm, I'm gonna click off and just be done with this.
You should know I'm not quite that young.
I'm just messing with you.
I believe I was in 5th grade. And it was my second day of school because my mom didn't like to start school because I was homeschooled. Like before Memorial Day, she's like, "That's dumb. You start and then you take a break for a Monday off." So, Labor Day. Oh, Labor Day. My bad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it was our second day because it was Tuesday, and I think I had like some cereal for breakfast, and we were just, me and my brother were sitting in the living room, and I was flipping through the channels for something like good to watch before we started school, because we usually started like at like 9, like right after breakfast. We had it really easy. And my mom was in the shower getting ready, and on like a few different channels there was like something about like this plane that hit a building or something. It was on fire, like it exploded. We didn't know because it was like it had just happened. And my mom came out of the shower, and I was like still flipping through. She's like, hey, go back. What's that? Like, oh, something hit a building. It's on a few different channels, whatever. Like, no, go back to it. Yeah. I didn't understand what it was. And like, she went very quickly and very passionately. It was like, we're like, especially after like the second plane hit, she's like, we are under a terrorist attack. That was her words.
It was
Like she like understood very quickly what was happening, and I had never heard the
right. You
word
were just a
terrorist
little
before.
baby, right?
Yeah, I was just a little dude. So that was half of our school that day was just watching
Yeah.
history being made. Like she like grabbed a VHS tape that you could record on a VCR.
Yeah.
I started recording it, and she like kept thinking about waking my dad up. So like he knew what was happening, but he worked thirds at that time. So she waited until like after lunchtime to wake him up and let him know what was happening. So like we watched all day, like
Yeah.
progressively, like kept going back to it, um, just to kind of just witness it. I remember us trying to call my uncle who worked in New York City.
Yeah, there was no getting through.
Yeah, there was no getting through, and like everyone being worried about anyone who lived anywhere in New York near New York, just
Near
you know,
Washington,
they were
D.C.,
okay.
near the
Yeah,
Pentagon, near the Capitol, yeah, it was terrifying. I
yeah,
remember thinking how naive I felt after it happened. Like I just lived my life like that was just never gonna
yeah.
happen, and anything could happen. And that part was, I think, the scariest part was that we have no control over that.
Right. Yeah,
None.
it was strange. I feel like for me as a young kid who still didn't quite understand and who lives with a lot of privilege too.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah,
someone
and
who
fear. I
quite-
bet fear and privilege together.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I still didn't understand why like the next week, um, like there was some stuff that was like shut down. Like I couldn't I couldn't go to my soccer game on Saturday because everyone was afraid to go even to soccer games. Like they thought something would happen very locally, and I was just like, "That's silly. I don't think they're, I don't think they're coming after soccer games.
Yeah.
These guys are ruining my weekends." But I
Yeah, you
also,
kind of grew up with this over you as a
yeah,
young,
yeah,
I was an adult. I had become an adult I was a mom. I guess that's a very nice privilege that I was able to have, to just never have that really. I mean, the World Trade had been bombed before then, and we had terrorist attacks before then, but
yeah.
this was different.
Yeah. The something I've wanted to talk about on the show before, and especially for like September 11th, um, is I've been thinking more recently about our withdrawal from Afghanistan, and yeah, I really wish we had gotten into this last week more, but excuse me, something I remember feeling watching the cleanup, because that was something else that I remember watching the weeks forward. Um, is that I as what an 11-year-old boy at that time, or 12 year old kid, um, wanted to go to war. Like I wanted to go help because there was so much
Hurt.
yeah, there was so much hurt, there was so much push for revenge at that time.
It was a lot of revenge. Yes.
Yeah, and I do remember, now to me it feels like a little bit of, what's the word for it, double think. What's the actual
Yeah.
term? What's the word I'm looking for?
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Double think.
Not the Orwellian word, but the cognitive dissonance. I remember feeling those weeks after, maybe months after, probably months after, years even, because Bin Laden going after him.
It was such a formative time in your life for that to happen. I can't imagine it not shaping who you are. I can't imagine any type of war not shaping a young person's life forever.
Yeah, it made you feel more patriotic because everyone did group together. They wanted to help. I remember all of the like big time singers at the time came together and did like a big show. I forget what that was called. And they raised money. Yeah. But like I wanted to do something like, like I felt empowered, like with righteousness, like courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue by Toby Keith, like just like, yeah, we'll put a boot in their ass. It's the American way. Like all of that feeds into your ego to go get revenge, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Whatever
the whole world's blind and full of gums.
Gums, yeah. So I remember that, but the cognitive dissonance, should have come when I realized that when Bush Jr. was saying to the world stage, look, like we're going into Afghanistan, we're going to have this war on terror, and anyone who's not with us is against us. Woo. And I'm just like I think I remember my mom being like, yes. And me, even as a younger kid, realizing like, but maybe some people just don't want to get in the middle of it. Like that doesn't seem right. Like I remember that. And maybe, you don't have to have cognitive dissonance to want to go fight for your country and not fight everyone else around who doesn't want to be involved, right? But I guess where I feel like I should have had some cognitive dissonance is having little moments of like some kind of clarity and also completely buying into the propaganda that everyone else did at the time. Like it's not that there's absolutely no virtue in wanting to get some kind of revenge, right? That's that's why there's riots sometimes. That's why we have terrorists at all in the world. You're muted, Christy.
especially as a young boy, it's more comic book. It's black and white. There's good and bad. There's righteous and unrighteous. There's no gray area, which you've come to understand that most things reside in the gray area. And we were fed a bill of crap with the weapons of mass destruction and that's a whole nother show actually.
Yeah, to go to war with a country that that didn't attack us.
Right. We still haven't done anything to the two countries who had people attack us, but
Saudi Arabia and
Egypt.
And what, like 16 out of 19 came from Saudi Arabia?
Right.
There's some cognitive dissonance there, at least.
I mean, I just was very confused, even as a young adult, 22, 23. I was very like, they're saying they do have them. And I wasn't big into politics. I was big into paying attention, to mainstream stuff. That's it. Yeah. And, one side is saying that they can't find anything, but some of them are saying that they agree. And I was just like, I don't know. It's so confusing. And I have little kids, so I'll just let the professionals figure it out and not really get involved. And I hate that me. I look back at me and I'm like, that me, and that's where they want. And I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but it is a wanted place for citizens where there are big powers that be would like for the democracy to not be so democratic. They would like to write the legislation, which some corporations actually help write legislation. So we're right there.
Yeah. So allow me to segue from here.
Mm-hmm.
into our main topic tonight. But when a country goes to war, it is very common, especially our country, to find a justification to conquer the enemy, and any enemies that could be of interest to us, and say, I don't know if I want to go. Okay. And just say, God's with us, right? He's on our side. We are in the right. We're going to do this with him by our side. Now, how does that play into Colombia? Because the picture that you showed me last week and our viewers was taking over the land of America and driving out the natives. That's what that reminds me of. And it was their God with them to help us.
It's called American Progress. And I do have, I can also, you can go back to last week where I can also pull it up and look at it. I did send all of them to our admin, and we can share all of those photos with our chat. There's like 3 different shares because my phone wouldn't let me send all of them in one. It says, listen, Linda. So I had to break it down.
Nacho, do you mind making sure that I can share a screen share? And while she's talking, I'll go ahead and pull up the painting.
Yes. You guys, this topic, okay, when I found out that there was an American goddess created by our founders, I had to know more. And this was a while ago, before the whole letting go of magical thinking thing. So I was really, I'm still into myths. I think myths are so fantastic. Beowulf was one of my favorite things to read, just completely mythical. I love them. I couldn't wait to see who is this goddess? How don't I know crap about her? And I liked history class a lot. I still am obsessed with history. I learned more in the last 10 years researching and reading historical documents and just learning about history than I have in my entire education for 12 years. So 11 actually, if you want to count. Probably less than that. When do we even start history? Like not in first grade, really. I mean, you do a couple basics, but you're not really learning history. Not as I think some first graders could actually understand. I just don't think that we do. Now, we all know about the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. D.C., District of Columbia. It's also known as the District of the Goddess Columbia, which is so cool. I think the District of the Goddess sounds so badass. It's one of my favorite things to say about Washington, D.C. The story of the North American goddess goes a little something like this. Back when our nation was being formed, our founders' ideas, Franklin, Jefferson, Madison, mostly, but John T. and John Adams as well, they wanted to pattern American after 3 democratic institutions. Number 1, they were obsessed with the ancient Greeks, the first democracy over 3,000 years prior. Number 2, the ancient Romans. I mean, you can see it. You can see both of them in our infrastructure, especially in our capital. The ancient Romans, that was the first republic, and that was over 2,000 years ago. And number 3, which I'm sure a lot of Americans don't know because it's left out of a lot of history, especially history that I grew up reading, the Iroquois Confederacy, which consisted of 5 indigenous nations. I will totally ruin the names, but I will not at least try. Mohawk, which was very close to where I grew up. Oneida, like one Ida is how it's spelled. I'm sure that is not how it's pronounced. The next one is Onondaga, Onondaga. And then the next one is Cayuga, Cayuga. And then Seneca is the last one. So these 5 indigenous nations, the Federation, they had a constitution. They had a 3-branch form of government. So they had the Supreme Court, the legislature, and executive. They had only one gender that was allowed to vote. It was the female only. Right.
And who was that again?
This is the Iroquois Federation, who our founding fathers patterned our nation after: the Romans, the Greeks, and the Iroquois Federation. Well, then we eradicated them, but we needed to get their ideas. It wasn't exactly like that, but I have to be hyperbolic sometimes. This is a really fun story, so it's about going back in history, and it's okay to have your opinions about it. I do like that only one gender was allowed to vote and that it was female. I don't like that in general. I think that's not fair. Every human should be able to vote. But it just kind of, why weren't we taught this? It's part of history. It's not going to change us, or maybe they're scared it will give us more of an egalitarian kind of mind and less of a follow the orders type of mind. I just really loathe that wasn't taught to us. Of these 3 historical democracy/republics that they wanted to pattern this new nation after, all of them had gods and goddesses. We had gods. Our founding fathers recognized we had Yahweh, we had Jesus, we had the Holy Spirit, we had Allah, we had all these gods who, if you looked at depictions of them or read depictions of them, had penises. They were males. We didn't have a goddess. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, females have been used to symbolize regions, nations, countries, states. I mean, your grandpappy's car, she's a good old gal. That's just the way that it is. We believe that this idea actually came to be from the Greek and Roman cultures.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, go for it.
Specifically, because when you showed me that, it rang a few bells. One of which, is there any connection to the our country to her?
Yes.
And then also Columbia Pictures.
Oh, yes, that's her standing there.
Yeah.
I actually sent you the years to year of Columbia pictures, so that's shared, and awesome. It shows you 1920 Columbia pictures, what it looked like in the 1930 and the 1940s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. So like if you go sit down in front of the moving picture at first, the black and whites, and then the picture show, how it changed throughout the year. That is our goddess Columbia. Why don't we know that? As a general populace, why don't we know that? So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. Well, think about why you wouldn't want to live in a country as a people, why you wouldn't want a pagan false goddess to be remembered, even if it is factual, that she's mythical, that we created. Why wouldn't you want that story told? I mean, I'm sure everyone here, there's nobody in our chat that doesn't understand that. However, teachers should be better than that. In Greek and Roman cultures, everything was deified, I told you, as either a god or a goddess. So when the Greeks and the Romans conquered a new place or new territory, they usually created a deity to represent that newly conquered place. So during the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution, there was an obsession with Roman and Greek cultures. You got to understand this happened during these Roman and Greek times. People were very interested in learning about history. They wanted to learn. They wanted to know what we could know. What the Enlightenment was and scientific revolution. So this is happening again at this time. It had just been thousands of years and thousands of years because civilizations crumble. That could happen anytime. We've come really far this time. So hopefully we don't, and we don't have people reading about this like this thing that did exist and what we can learn about it, but not know everything. I hope that we continue to not go extinct is what I'm saying. In the 1600s, there was an early Native American personification of the Americas as a goddess. She was indigenous, she had long dark hair, but she is the goddess that transforms. Over the century, the symbol would become, and I changed, if you look in the history books, it says less savage, and it just made my stomach fucking turn. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use that word. They became more European in images. I didn't see anything savage except for the skin color was darker and her hair was dark. So that was the most, sometimes history though, when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we've learned. This is really bad. So, but it does say that. They also use the word more civilized, but she becomes more European looking in images. Throughout the years, you will see her as a long brunette, as a long blonde, and a long light brown. They changed her color of the hair throughout the years. And as the year went by, her image became more and more European. The settlers wanted this goddess to represent them, and they did their own newspapers with their cartoons, their political cartoons. And so she would be drawn more and more to represent the settlers and their values rather than the original indigenous Native American image and values. In 1697, Chief Justice Samuel Sewall used the name Columbina for the New World after Christopher Columbus because it had to be, feminized because it is a nation. It is something to own. So Columbina became her name. Do you want to say something to that? I saw your face. Yeah.
I was again. That was just one that funny. Like, is that something that was supposed to be? Are those linear? But while you're talking, I finally found a picture that we can use up here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up, and you can keep talking.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. In 1738, Columbia would get her forever name in an illegal magazine called the Gentleman's Magazine. And in those links of photos that are shared, you will see the cover of the Gentleman's Magazine. So it's cool to actually see it. It was called the Gentleman's Magazine, and it was illegal because it was a publication of parliamentary debates in Britain. Now, this is here in the colonies, and that's no. So fake names were used in this publication to make it sound more fictional and not rattle too many cages. So, such as Germania for Germany. I don't see how we would not know that. And Britannia for Britain. And Columbia for the New World, aka the American colonies. American independence brought about even more American symbolism, giving colonists their own identity as they fought to become their own nation. This is very important for most nations, actually. And you can see it through all countries' history of how they came to be. I just find it fascinating that humans are so similar everywhere. It's kind of a beautiful thing. European countries had been using Latin names to represent countries, states, etc., and that had caught on here by the poems that were written during that time. By using these Latin names in the poems, made it sound so pretty. And in 1776, Phyllis Wheatley Peters, who was the very first African-American author of a published book of poetry. She was born in West Africa, sold into slavery at age 7 or 8 to the Wheatley family of Boston. She wrote the first poem of Columbia. As the symbolic figure she became, and then I do want to share with you this wonderful poem. I thought that I didn't mean to exit out of it, but it's easy to pull up because it was in my little thingy mabobs. It's a real word. This is her poem. Now, my notes in the back. I should never sing out loud. Okay. I do. The poem was a success and gave life to this goddess. The poem was about freedom And it was in 1775 that George Washington read a poem out loud dedicated to him titled "To His Excellency, George Washington." So the poem was like George Washington's poem. For a lot of people, they didn't know the difference. She wasn't given the credit for a while. So a poem about freedom and freedom from the King George III, and it was written by the former slave, Phyllis Wheatley. After this poem, Columbia's name was everywhere. I mean, it just caught on, this poem written by a former slave to His Excellency George Washington. And you can like look up all these documents and see them. And I just think it's so cool. And I will read it to you. No, we don't talk like this anymore. So forgive me if it's not exactly old-timey. One century scarce performed its destined round, when Gaelic powers Columbia's fury found. And so may you, whoever dares disgrace the land of freedom's heaven-defended race. Fixed are the eyes of nations on the scales, for the hopes Columbia's arm prevails. And he read it out loud, and she went everywhere, and everything was Columbia. I'm talking about towns, ships, town squares, everywhere. The song Hail Columbia was the national anthem in this country until the year 1931. Hail Columbia. Have you ever heard this song? Because I think that's ridiculous.
Man, that's really crazy because,
right.
I mean, what do even Republicans say? They're in your history.
That's pagan. I'm being silly. You can have amazing conversations with people that are conservative. I actually have some brilliant clients who are conservative. We have great conversations. So I'm just being silly. However, there are some, of course.
Hail Columbia.
Hail Columbia.
1789. Lyrics by Joseph Hopkinson.
In our chat is my friend Sergio, who looked it up today. And he's a musician. He can play multiple instruments. And he wants to redo Hail Columbia so it sounds more modern. And I'm like, please, please do this. I think that would be so badass. So
yeah, I just found it on YouTube. So everyone knows you can just look up Hail Columbia.
Very, very, very easy. You can look up the lyrics on Google and read the lyrics. And I promise you, there's not one part in it, like the Star Spangled Banner, that we don't say out loud. So there's that. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, we do not say all of the lyrics of the poem, the Star Spangled Banner, as our national anthem, because we have to leave some of it out because it is not appropriate as a national anthem. So there's that. Our founders' interest with Roman culture was taking on a life of its own, actually. We started using the eagle as our national bird, which is very, very Roman. Even giving and using the term Senate to describe our upper house of Congress, same as them, all the way up to using the name Columbia to describe our nation's capital, the District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C., or like I like to call it, the city of the goddess. Because our founders didn't want to reuse an already established Greek or Roman goddess, they created a goddess of our own with their imagination out of whole cloth, which is a very pagan thing to do by definition to many Christians then and now. And that's factual. And you can find, as I did while looking this up, when I wanted to just listen to other information by other historians that were out there, there's videos of people ranting about this is pagan devil worship. Of course, a couple of them I had to click on just because it's just so funny. I'm like, woo, where's my tinfoil hat? But
is this
they're out there.
Does this all count like to that like demon channel that if you're on a psychedelic that Alex Jones is always ranting about?
Oh my gosh, I almost am scared to know what he would think about the story. because I'm sure it would have more face removing and baby eating going on with it somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say to you guys that George Washington put our goddess Columbia on our coins, and she stayed on our nation's currency until Ronald Reagan became president in 1980.
He would be the one to finish her off, wouldn't he?
So Reagan killed the goddess for good by taking her off our currency. You and I are right here. Which was really the last place she was welcome. Yeah, that's the last place that she was welcome in our country, was on our coins.
They always said that he was a lady killer.
Oh, that's so funny. You're so good at the dad jokes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Which, like I said, that was the last place she was really welcome. But Reagan took office, and we were becoming, stadiums were filling up with Christians going to listen to, all of them. Come on, guys. We've watched all of the debates we can ever watch between a Christian and some of our favorite atheist activists. And these people would fill up stadiums, and Christianity was, we were becoming even more Christian than we had, I think, really ever been, as a different ideology, not so much the Sunday ideology, as almost like a national conservative ideology, an American conservative ideology. So from George Washington, 1776 until 1980s, the goddess Columbia was on our quarters, our half dollars, and on our silver dollars. So they're out there. We've all held them in our hand. I mean, I remember they have stars around them. That's the goddess. It's just, Columbia is our nation's goddess. So we have a goddess, and I think that that's badass. She was placed on top of our Capitol building, and our government passed legislation that no building in the District of Columbia, our capital, could be taller than the goddess's head. This explains why there aren't any high rises in our nation's capital at all. Still to this day, that is on the books. It took an act of Congress to get the Washington Monument, the giant phallic symbol in DC, built. And it is the only thing in our nation's capital that is taller than the goddess's head. This big thing. I'll just stick with the phallic word. Also, it is pretty. I've been there. The way it reflects on the water is very pretty. However, I cannot say that when I was at the Washington Monument, I did not go, Jenny, because I had to.
God damn it.
I had to. But I mean, it's me, and I love that book. Okay, the movie is great, you guys. I love Tom Hanks. Side note, read the book. It's so much better. There's so many more things that happen to him that are part of historical things, like how he's in the White House, and one of my favorite books. I've read it like 3 or 4 times. It's really good. All right. Symbol, sorry about that. It's the giant phallic symbol in DC, and is the only thing that's taller than our head. That's where we're at. Also, our founders declared and made into law that if one lives in the district of the goddess, the District of Columbia, one must be so committed to the governance, the work of the goddess, to form a more perfect union to provide for general welfare of our nation's citizens, that one living in DC, in Washington, D.C., couldn't even, and I quote, have a dog in the fight. Tom Hartman said that, and he was quoting someone else, and that person was quoting someone else. So I'll quote the latest person, which was Tom Hartman. That meant if you lived in the District of Columbia and did the sacred work of the goddess, which is governance, you have no representation, no senators, no congresspersons, and you could vote in federal elections, but only for an elector, not the president. They wanted no, and I repeat, they wanted zero corrupting influence in the capital. This sounds pretty egalitarian for the time, I'd say. And this is still on the books in the District of Columbia. DC license plates state, quote, taxation without representation. At least no voting representation. This is just a tiny piece of our goddess's history, guys. There's so much. Goddess Columbia is still today in front of our Department of Justice. She's blindfolded, holding the scales of justice. The goddess of Columbia is in front of the Pentagon with a shield in one arm and a bunch of arrows in the other, looking a lot like Captain America. I'm sure that if you look, you will find Goddess Columbia has roots in your area, has images, statues, stories, just about everywhere. I wrote down a few more things that I thought were almost, I couldn't leave out. Columbia, for reference, our personal United States goddess, wore all white for purity or red, white, and blue for our nation's flag. And there are many variations. I have some pretty cool, like, fun facts. The Frisian cap, which she wore on her head. Okay, this hat has so much history, and I'm just going to touch on like the tip of my nail of that, the history with this hat. The red Frisian cap, exactly like the one Papa Smurf wears, was specifically a symbol of the French Revolution, and during the Reign of Terror, it was worn or used to denounce adherence to the violent new regime. The Frisian cap originated in the ancient country of Frisia in Anatolia and was represented in ancient Greek art as the type of headdress or hats worn by all of the people of Anatolia, which is now Turkey. So this hat has the symbolism of fighting against tyranny, of standing up against violent regimes. And this is what she wears. Columbia is and was known as the spirit of the American people. She represented the people of this nation, not the government. In 1775, George Washington, I told you, read that poem, which started her name spreading all across the country. From every part of this country, she was known as the goddess of freedom, the goddess of liberty, the goddess of protection, and the goddess of the people and the spirit of the people. Which, what's Uncle Sam known for? He's got nothing on her, nothing. Columbia was seen everywhere. I found boxes of baking powder, which you will see in the photos, on the side of ships. Cities have been renamed in her honor. We have a college renamed after her honor. Even songs, like I said, Hail Columbia, which was our national anthem until 1931. Little girls would dress up like goddesses, little goddess Columbias for the 4th of July festivities every year. How adorable is this? What? I want to go back and do that. That's unfair that I didn't get to do that. I want to be the goddess Columbia on the 4th of July. Maybe I will start doing it. Maybe I will. I think that's adorable. Having 2 girls myself, it would have been adorable to dress them up as the goddess. There are even official guides and guidelines on how to dress like the goddess Columbia that would be sent out in ladies' magazines, which is a picture and what I shared. Even during America's Civil War, both sides would call out to the goddess Columbia, "Give them hell, Columbia," as they charged into battle. They would stop and cease fires and talk about how they were fighting for Columbia together. There's so many stories, and that could be its own stories. The actual history of people talking about their experience during the war, and ceasefires, they're just 2 Americans, like helping get their dead out and their wounded out, and they didn't want to fight each other. And Hail Columbia. Like, around this time, toward the end of the Civil War, Columbia's rival or cousin or both, depending on how one sees these fictional things, Uncle Sam was born. Columbia and Uncle Sam both shared the spotlight, and they did this often. So Uncle Sam represents the government, as we know. Uncle Sam wants you the big hand all real close. So he wanted you. We have RB, who understands what the draft feels like, which I can't even imagine what a draft feel like, that not knowing if your name is going to be called. And that's Uncle Sam. That's what he was known for. There are actual cartoons that are shared in that, and one of them has Uncle Sam sitting down, and he's got the Patriot Act in front of him. He's got spying, all these illegal, unconstitutional things we've passed as legislature that, all of them, all around him. An eagle in a cage, and Lady Liberty looks back and she's like, I don't even know you anymore. And she's walking out the door with her luggage. So there's a couple humorous things with her and him both together in that that is shared. Star Spangled Banner replaced Hail Columbia in 1931 as their national anthem, leaving out the entire last little bits. World War II, Uncle Sam alone called for citizens to join our armed forces. Columbia was replaced completely.
Gotcha.
In that area during World War II. Columbia's look-alike, Lady Liberty, as in the Statue of Liberty, took over the feminine representation, while Uncle Sam stayed prevalent. It just stayed that way. Columbia. Go ahead.
Did the French model the Statue of Liberty off of?
That's a good question. Liberté is who they modeled it off there, from what I could find, because it would be very easy to say yes. Yeah. She looks a lot like her, holding up everything. But the French say it was Libertas. Thank you. Thank you, Nacha. Yes, an actual goddess that already for liberty.
Okay.
But
so where is she?
Goodness, we have a kitten. She's crazy. Her name is Moo, and I call her Mustafa.
You good? So where is Libertas from?
Greek, Latin.
Okay.
Greek, I would have to actually, don't quote me on either. It's Greek or Latin.
No, what Christy says
has her whole Roman goddess of liberty, freedom, Greek equivalent being Eutheria.
I can't read that either. But also, thank you, Nacha.
Roman. He's like, Roman. Stop saying Greek. Yes.
Same diff.
No, I mean there's a thousand
European.
between them.
Europeans all the same, right? We're Americans.
Oh, gosh, that's the most American thing you ever said.
I know.
I do want to say just one more time, I think it's very important that Columbia represented all of the United States inhabitants. Unlike today's political cartoons. You think about, what do we see today? We see the donkey, right? And I did share in Leah's Facebook chat a quick 5-minute video that was really amazing. Kind of threw in, it's a very educational channel, and it's about the goddess, and she just put so many things in it that I was like, here, just share this. This will prep you for what we'll be talking about tonight, because I don't have to say anything else. This is pretty much some bullet points as wonderful.
And who's that video by?
Let's see. I will.
You said you sent that to me?
It's in our Facebook. Yes. Thought Bubble. Sorry.
It's by Thought Bubble?
It's in Thought Bubble, yeah. Which I know is completely funny. But I will share it. Oh, I don't know how to, but I will share it to you right now so you can do that. There you go. I can't do it on my phone while I'm talking. Oh, listen to that. I have arrived. She did represent everyone. Unlike today, we have kind of we're split in two. And I think that she mentions that in her video, and it kind of made me think, you're right. Lady Liberty, we had civil war, actual civil war. And they were both for Lady Liberty, for the goddess Columbia. And In God We Trust replaced the Latin for the many one in 1956, and that was put on our money, even though this has not everything to do with her, but She was on our money with the Latin for the many one, for a reason by our founders. She was for the many, we are one. And Eisenhower, I can't say that he is, I mean, he signed it, yes, but he had so much pressure from the John Birch Society and from the Christian coalitions of this nation to get her to get for the Latin, anything that has to do with that could lead back to anybody going, there was a goddess, there was all this, that's not about Jesus, it's got to go. So they couldn't put Jesus or any particular religion, so it just says in God we trust. And the John Birch Society, which is an anti-communist, an anti big government or pro-limited government group. I'm sure you guys know who they are and have heard of them. So that's kind of, you can see this like almost this idea that was so good that it could never happen, and we self-sabotage so it could never happen. We killed the beautiful parts, even though obviously she's made up. Obviously, gods and goddesses are made up.
Yeah.
But she was not allowed to be a god. That's part, it's just part of architecture. And now, you know, knowing that story and going back through pictures, visiting the Capitol, there she is. And I'm like, I had no idea I was looking at the goddess of our country. But, you know, yeah. I don't hold as in she's a goddess and I pray to her. I just love history. And I would have loved to know that and told my little girls who were with me, look it, that's the goddess and here's her story. And we lost that. So now we've gained it back.
Yeah, we have. At least, you know, people who watch this show tonight. Thanks for watching. Learn something. Yeah.
And I want to say, Brooke, who's not here tonight, who will be watching this tomorrow night or listening to this while she's in the bathtub. I hope you had fun tonight. This is her favorite part of history. And she was very surprised to not know, you know, like a few things. And she's very excited to listen to while she soaks in her bathtub Saturday night on her night off. Hi, and I hope you had fun and got to learn a few things.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Is this the same Brooke from our?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Our community.
McCormick,
yes.
Right?
Yes, McCormick.
Cool.
Yes. Mwah.
Cool.
Yes. We go back and forth with history. Like we're just love it.
Awesome. I'm glad she watches. Shoot, I forgot what I was going to say with that. You were, I have to recap in my head. You were talking about gods made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
obviously,
one way that I like to look at religion now, because over the last 4 years, I think, going on 5, since I had like come out of my religious beliefs, I very quickly, within like the first 6, 7, 8 months, got to the point of not just atheist, but anti-theist. But that will happen if you listen to as many hours of Christopher Hitchens debate as I had at that point. Yeah. And I still hold very fervently that position. I am definitely anti-theist. I think it is a net negative on people to believe things that are not true. And the justification I will use is not just a Christopher Hitchens one, but an R and Ra way, because I think that faith is the most dishonest position that you can have, to believe something without evidence.
You know, and I agree with that for myself 100%. For me, that is dangerous for me to believe things that are untrue. However, and I'll use my mom, and if she ever watches this and listens to this, I hope she doesn't take offense to this. She's let go of the God belief.
Likewise.
She holds on to the afterlife belief. but she lost her husband. And I think it's a net benefit for her while she's here. I mean, I just can't imagine trying to take that away from her. So as a humanist, my humanism is more powerful than any anti-theism could ever be in me. It just is. And I get that. And I understand. Like, I can't imagine losing someone that close. I can't. And
right. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so destructive, is because if your belief in God, or any God, includes a belief in the afterlife, then anyone that you've ever mourned for, you feel the need to mourn for again.
Yeah.
Lose that, yeah. And that's one of my big pillars of why. Like, if I had a top 3, that definitely makes it, of why it's a net negative, because it gives you a false sense of hope that if you are not mentally ready to deal with, because you've been fed bullshit, then that's hard. And a lot of people can't get past the nihilism because we're not given those tools from a young age to deal with it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was a very hard fight to gain and grasp those tools for myself.
Yeah, and it's the big reason why some people just don't let go, is because I can't give that up because it hurts too much. And like a computer that can't process something does not compute.
And you
have to backtrack. It's a safety mechanism. But what I was going to get to, even though I am anti-theist, I have finally come to a point over the last maybe 2 years. I haven't engaged this one as much. But I know I was against it at one point. The cultural aspect of religion, I think, is valuable. And
the history of them.
Yeah, and it's important because and this is something that I'm really glad I can speak to with an atheist audience, because we have so many different views on it.
Actually, we have a couple believers.
Okay, as well, but speaking more towards the atheist portion.
Just a very logical audience. We're lucky and fortunate to have.
Yes. Yeah. I want to say that if you do hold the position that there's absolutely nothing you can learn from religion, or it's all bad, maybe it's all bad. That's, I think, subjective either way. But I think that you can learn something from it because people believed it and built their lives and cultures around it. So it's important to study for that aspect. Like Columbia, it's not necessarily a belief. It was kind of religious, absolutely, but it is important to understanding cultures, because that's where they got their understanding, or what they based a lot of their understanding in.
It would be so different if our founding fathers didn't go over the history of these things they were obsessed with and pattern this nation with their favorite parts that picked apart from each one. They used the history that they could know to be factual and repurposed it. There wasn't Christianity. There were other myths.
Excuse me.
And they could look at it and understand that it was, and understand that myths are and how they work, and they just made one.
Yeah. And I remember thinking that in high school, thinking back to like the Greek gods, like Zeus and Hercules and Olympia.
But the gladiator, Hercules.
That was great. Um, that was so good. Thank you. And
The movie's so cute. Sorry, I had
just
little kids
thinking
at
like
that
them
time.
and the gods like Thor, like the Norse
Hmm.
gods, Odin, Loki, whatever. Um, what what if what if they didn't actually believe in them? What if
Right,
they made those stories to build up their culture, kind of like Columbia, very very obvious, but to them it's like our comic book characters, like Captain America and
mhm,
Superman, and then I cut myself off, right?
right.
And they're like, oh, nope, nope, nope. That's a dangerous way to think. And you just back off of it. And then years later, I'm just like, man,
I
I
was
was
right. I
wrong
was
back
right
then.
right then.
I
I had
remember
it
thinking
and I
that.
let it go.
Yeah. I'm like, I remember thinking that. And then I remember myself remembering that. And
Right.
it's
That's
just so
funny.
funny. And and I don't know how many gods are like that. I assume there are more than just Columbia. where the lore is added on throughout time,
Right.
kind of
I'm
like
sure
Captain
all of
America,
them.
like Captain
Yeah.
America. Um, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much truth value there is to history sometimes if people put stock in it, to build up their culture, and that's why I think it's really important to learn about it, not just from a religious standpoint, but the further I get into the information that I try to take in every single week, is it builds to political decisions and economic decisions. People view a Republican Jesus, even though he's a hippie
He's a
communist.
commie. Yes.
Yeah, and it's so
Goodness.
strange how Second Thought always makes a video
Oh,
that
definitely
weaves
one of
into
my
what we're talking
favorite
about
channels.
every
Yes.
freaking week because he just did this. Um, mentioned a Republican Jesus, or I'm sorry, a socialist Jesus, just today.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
Spoiler
watch it.
alert.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
just I
good to
just love
talk about.
his channel as well.
Okay.
Yes, I look forward to a new one. Like sometimes I can't even wait. Like whatever else I was doing, I was like, that's going on right now. Yes, I enjoy Second Thought thoroughly. And I like to take notes to claims that I haven't heard before and then take a look and just I might not know everything after doing that, but I know something about it. And I feel like knowing something is better than not knowing anything. I just want to know. So knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe, American hero. Sorry, Mac walked away and I felt like I needed to dance for
Oh,
everyone.
what are you talking about? But yeah, I think this is a really fantastic topic. I had actually forgotten that we were going to do this. When
I
I
did
finally
it.
got messages again.
We got off and I was already in it. I
Yeah,
was like,
I'm feeling
yes.
so glad. I'm so glad because this was really fun. As soon as I read Olympia and then again Columbia, I was like,
Yeah.
shit, yes, yes, yes. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. And I was stoked like the last couple of days, thinking about learning about this because this is something I didn't know much about. And then like thinking about it, and once you finally said Columbia, I was like, oh shit, like the motion picture lady.
Yeah. Exactly
And
right.
I started seeing her more in my memories. I'm like, yeah, she
Yeah.
she has been around. Maybe she was on her money, all this stuff. I'm like, that's cool. Not that I doubted you. It's
I'm
just like
sure I even have a couple that I will take out and take pictures of and send you that I have a few quarters and a few $50 and a few silver dollars with her on there. My grandfather was in World War II, was in something else. What came after that? The Korean. And other things too. My mom was raised in the military. Anyway, he had lots of coins and I just got obsessed with seeing like this one from here and he'd tell me about it, and there's all these stories that with them, so they just seemed such a rich thing to me. And when I met Stacy, she had like this whole collection. Her mom and dad were both military, and her mom was lifetime military as well. And her mom's been everywhere. So she's brought her coins and paper money back from so many countries. So together we have this very like elaborate worldwide coin collection. Probably none of them, might be one or two that are worth something, but to us, they're like really, really cool. And her mom tries to bring money back from everywhere she goes. It's like 5 cents or 10 cents, just because it's so cool.
That is cool.
The old ones from, or they say Roma on them, from Italy, with they're like 2 metals, bronze and nickel and silver, and inlaid in each other. I'm like, oh, that's fancy.
Yeah, I
Of
like
course
that.
it is.
I don't think I've mentioned it on the show before, and I don't really need to, but I want to. The fact that I'm nerdy enough to have a coin collection.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 of my favorite coins that I have.
You're just listening to me going, that's why I love you.
I love this. I have a little Roman coin that's dated between 1 and 200 AD.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
And
that'd be amazing.
like I got it for really cheap because it's in very poor condition.
Still
But
super
if
cool.
you get it under the right light, like at the right angle, like you can see that there's like a gladiator on the front, and on the back it looks like, I think it's an antelope, and either 2 or 3 stars above it. And I've always wanted to find out exactly where it's from, but yeah, it's a Roman coin, and
Oh, delicious.
super cool. And then my other favorite, which is probably my first favorite because it's in much better condition. It's an American
Yes.
1865
Ooh, India.
2-cent piece.
Oh, yes. Yes, we have a couple
It's
of
a
those.
2-cent.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
I think we have like a couple Indian heads as well. With the
Yeah, I have some
native-
Indian heads.
Yeah.
I have those and a couple of buffalo nickels, which are in
Yes. Yeah.
condition.
I just love them. Whenever someone just would hand them over, I worked at Home Depot when I went through cosmetology school. So handled money. But I'm like, oh, you're an idiot. And change it out and put it in my pocket. Like,
Yeah.
I'll take that, you ding dong. Yeah.
I still keep the wheat pennies and everything. Right.
Okay, read
out.
our side chat right now. Just love him so much. You nerd.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so okay, all 3 of us like coins. And we find each other.
It's too good.
We
We're
just
such
found
nerds.
out.
I don't care
it was
about
fun.
about the dollar bills though. Actually, I have a $3 bill, I think,
Yes.
and it's Bill.
Yeah, it's Bill.
Oh,
I have a
Clinton.
lot. We have a lot of $2 bills. A lot of $2 bills.
Yeah, I have a bunch of twos,
And
but I
money
asked,
from all over the world in paper. Stacy's mom will bring it in like an envelope. She went when they moved from Utah to Florida to be close to her. Stacy's brother has a little boy to be close to family now that there's grandchildren. She went through all her change, and so she handed her an envelope. So they were all flat, the money from all over the globe. So this is like recently that she just got all these new ones, and we're both like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Those are recent current bills, so it's not like they're old. They're not in the same area.
Right.
That we would put our old ones. However, they're still just so cool. So they're different. Some are short, some are taller, they're all different, and they just look so different than ours. Ours just have this very like, a lot of them when you hold them up, you can see the face over and over again as the protection, but you can't see it when you're looking at it like this. And it's just like, wow, that's a lot of protection. No one would ever be able to duplicate that.
So, real quick, and then we're gonna probably end this because we're far off topic.
Yes. It was a lot of fun though.
Working in fast food and handling a lot of money, I learned different ways to see if certain bills are real. So those little squiggly lines, if you take out a dollar, those little squiggly lines are one of the security things that we have on there. Like they look like mistakes, but a bunch of little squiggly ink lines.
Right.
There's the face that you can see in like 5 and above. Excuse me. There's the new colors that they have, the little like gold little stamps on some, and then also on all of the dollars. A lot of people don't know this one, but it's very cool. And I just don't even use an ink pen anymore if I handle money. You scratch the ridge of the jacket because all of the president's jackets are ridged. If you didn't know that, grab $1 now and check it out. It's super cool.
He's got texture. On his suit.
All of them are textured. You just take your fingernail and run it down, and it's interesting. It feels like it's the coolest thing to know because you're like, that's weird. But then when you actually, that's like when you get that gratification of doing it yourself, like that is pretty fucking cool. One, how do we do that on everything? Fucking like, how much do we spend on on texturing it like that? But 2, most people don't know it, and it's really, really fun to share. So
I had never heard that before either.
Yeah,
not the jacket part at all. And I know there's
even
remember
on
when they put the bar. That was the last time I worked with money. They just put the bar through the bills. So,
and it goes with the ridge too. I'm checking on my $1 bill right now, but you have to like turn your
with the grain.
Got to go
against the grain or with the grain.
Yeah.
Against the grain. Now we know. The more we know. Australia paper money.
Have y'all ever seen the Australian paper money? It literally was the first to be implemented with security features, etc., decades ago, as well as being fully washable, so you don't lose your money in the wash.
Right.
And on top of that, it's
really cool.
Oh, really? That's super cool. Super duper cool. I stay away from bills.
That means I'm like Fisher. Actually, I could probably just look it up on Google.
Yeah.
I'm going to. I don't.
The bills are cool, but I don't need another collection. So I just go for coins, and I'm very picky.
Yeah. Coins are my favorite too.
Brantley has signed off for the night.
Good night.
So I guess the show's over.
Yep. Look at that. All over.
Thank you all so much for watching. Real quick, Christy, can you tell us your week on hair?
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm like had a blast this week.
I'm the gray skeptic, but I think you're gonna have to be the silver skeptic.
118 weeks.
Wow.
It goes all the way down to about right here now. You can see where it starts changing.
Oh yeah.
But I'm loving this white part in the front. This is amazing. I just look at that. It's like perfectly white, and then it's not. But it is here. It's mixed. So
that reverse rope.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it looks like I mean, I'm a colorist. If I go like this, I can do foils like that with highlights in someone's hair. But to get them to look like they just come out of your scalp every single day and never have to do your color is amazing. It really is. So I had no idea all this was going on underneath there. I wouldn't have got away with it at the salon I worked at. I told you that. So it all happened the way it was supposed to. If you believe in that, I love you guys. Happy Friday. It was a fantastic show. We had a lot of fun. There's a one finger from Mac.
Yeah, since I've started this journey, I guess I would just want to keep you guys up on this. So I'll give you a weekly update now too. But I've now made it through the first 10 books of the Bible.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So I just made it through 1st and 2nd Samuel. This last
it's getting good now, though.
2 days. Yeah. So it's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Samuel 1 and 2.
Yes.
And I've got 29 left for the Old Testament.
Yes, but they're the better ones. You got through the like part.
The rough ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just want to let everyone know because I've been hitting it really hard, and I'm excited to share more of it with you as I go. So
yes, and if anybody watching this ever wants to debate Mac, he loves a good debate, and he'll even debate you live on his channel. So
sure, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, do that. It'll be fun. I'll show up and be like, yeah.
Debate me, bro, sis.
Yeah.
Cuz.
It's so funny. It's funny when you're being funny and say it, but when someone says that for real, it's not funny. It just needs to be funny. Just let it be funny. Yeah. I love you guys.
Funny.
And you say it this week.
Stay humanist, for God's sake.
So handsome.